Now can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, today's February 19th, isn't it?
Yes.
2023. I got that right. Sermon title is Principles of Creation, or the Image of God and the Second Major Principle of Creation. I hope this is right. Okay, this is about loving your neighbor as yourself. First of all commandments, the greatest of all commandments is to love God with your whole heart, your whole soul, with all your mind, and with all of your strength, right? That's the first commandment. And the second one is like it. It says the second one is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
First question would be is how is the second like the first? Do you think about that? It's like the first. Well, how is it like the first? I'm going to explain that to you today. That's my job. Okay, this is from the Divine Principle book. I don't know about you, but I read the Divine Principle book every morning to try and get inspiration to live, to continue going. This is on the Principle of Creation, Section 1, the dual characteristics of God and His world of creation. This is God's world of creation. And everything in it is designed as a type of image of God. Everything. So we say each and every creation, each and every one, every atom, every planet, every sun system, every animal, each and every creation enters into give and take action between the dual essentialities that form an individual self by forming a reciprocal relationship through universal prime energy. Right? In the last 70 years, what have physics scientists discovered? Takashi is not here. They discovered that everything, all atoms, all protons, everything is made out of what? It's just pure energy. And somehow we have what we call quark confinement, when huge amounts of energy are compressed into a hard thing called an atom, electron or a proton. And then all things are made of that. So everything is made of this, what we call universal prime energy. Through the force of give and take action, the essentialities produce a reciprocal base, which in turn produces a foundation of existence in an individual self. Then upon this foundation, the individual self can stand as God's object. This is why this lesson is important to us. We want to become the object of God. We want to become the direct object of God, where we receive God's thoughts, ideas, love, reciprocal love relationship, a give and take action with God. But it's based on this, right? And receive all the power necessary for its own existence. Isn't that what we want to become?
Yes.
Truly mature people who stand on their own as owners of God's creation. So the dual characteristics of God and His world of creation look like this. God contains within Himself dual essentialities which exist forever. In fact, time is an artificial construction of God, and eventually there will be no time. Through universal prime energy, these two form a mutual reciprocal relationship which develops into an eternal give and take action. So God is eternal. God is beyond time. Can't be measured by time. The energy produced through this process is a force of give and take action. Through this force, God's dual essentialities establish a reciprocal base. This results in the foundation of existence upon which God Himself exists forever. We say God has a mind and God has a type of spiritual body. And that give and take action is what God is. Now the interesting thing is, God's mind controls the physical atoms and minerals of our universe, which are composed entirely of universal prime energy. Does that make sense? So many people don't want to believe that, but we believe it strongly. And some of the evidence looks like this. Just as God controls the planets, atoms, our body, your mind, controls the atoms and minerals in your body. Isn't that true? Your body is made out of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, iron, calcium, the same thing rocks are made out of. But somehow in your body, the bones in your body and the muscles in your body, the water that's in your body, we're 67 to 75% water, somehow that water obeys your mind. Right? Somehow your consciousness tells your body, your hand to raise up. Now this is made of water, calcium, iron, different things like that, and it obeys your mind. Ideally, most of the time. I'm getting older. Anyhow, my point being, God's mind controls the universe exactly the same way your consciousness controls the universe of your body. Every human body is composed of approximately 40 trillion unique cells. And somehow your consciousness controls those 40 trillion cells made again of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, calcium, and iron and other things like that, right? So this mystery of consciousness is something nobody in the world understands. No scientist has a clue how our consciousness works. So far, human consciousness and our connection to our physical body is not understandable by any scientist anywhere in the world. Nobody's got a clue. All they know is it exists. We do it. We don't know how or why we do it. Give and take action between our mind and our body allows our existence and multiplication. Okay? So long as your mind and body are connected, you exist and you multiply. If you lose one or the other, then you're not multiplying anymore, are you? So this is now, again, you'll read a lot of things from modern atheists who don't believe in God or don't even believe in our mind. But here's a good book if you want to believe in a mind. This is called Proof of Heaven. It's by Dr. Eben Alexander. He's a neuroscientist and a neurosurgeon, right? He had a near-death experience where he saw heaven. He met his sister who had died before he even knew she was alive. He had many spiritual experiences. Then he wrote it all down in this book. And the interesting thing is, he's a neuroscientist. He knew he could study his charts when all these things were happening. He knew his brain was dead. Because that's what the chart said. There was no brain function in the slightest. Nevertheless, his mind was going places, seeing people, meeting people. And so he wrote his book as a neuroscientist who had gone to heaven called Proof of Heaven. You ought to read it. Now here's what he says. Consciousness is the most profound mystery in the universe. And we have to understand that. Only explainable by... This is another website. There's a book based on this, Evidence of the Afterlife. So again, this is a scientist who studies near-death experiences to see, does the mind actually exist outside the body? So they have many proofs of that actually happening. That's not going to be the topic of our study today, but if you want to find out about mind-body, mind being independent from a body, then these are some of the things you can look at. My point is, don't be tricked. Don't be tricked by mid-level scientists who say there's no such thing as consciousness or free will or things like that. Divine Principle book, Universal Forces of Give and Take Action. When we study heavenly bodies, we find that the solar system exists through the give and take action between the sun and the planets. The Earth and the Moon are also maintaining their orbital movements through give and take action, right? So without Earth, Moon, Sun, there's no solar system. It doesn't exist. So when we have give and take action, that's existence between the Sun and Moon. This is from physics.weber.college.edu. Newton's law of universal gravitation extends gravity beyond the Earth. Newton's law of universal gravitation is about the universality of gravity. Newton's place in the Gravity Hall of Fame is not due to his discovery of gravity, but rather due to his discovery that gravitation is universal throughout the universe. Okay? I like to mention Newton and other Christian scientists because there's a gigantic lie that Christianity somehow was against science. Right? Some Catholics didn't like Galileo, so they say all Christianity is against. No, Christians made science. Newton, who was a strong Christian, absolutely created what we call science. Let's see. All objects attract each other with a force of gravitational attraction. Gravity is universal. This force of gravitational attraction is directly dependent upon the masses of both objects and inversely proportional to the square of the distance which separates their centers. You don't need to remember that. The point is, two objects have a mutual attraction. That's called give and take action. Okay, that's what we call give and take action. So gravity is a type of give and take action that allows the universe to exist. Newton discovered the gravitational constant, how we measure gravity all around the universe. Newton's super mind could figure out, for example, how much does the Earth weigh? Anybody know? Yeah, but could you calculate how much it actually weighs? Okay, perfect. So he calculated the perfect balance between the weight of our Earth, gravity, mass of the sun, perfect speed, and centripetal force, so that we're in perfect free fall around the sun. So that what he discovered is the weight of the Earth is exactly perfect weight to stay 93 million miles away from the sun. By the way, I'll give you the answer. Let's see. He figured it out through geometry that the Earth weighs 6 trillion kilograms. So I'm not going to read all this because you don't need to know it. The amazing thing is that back in the 16th century, he could calculate the weight of the Earth by geometry and by calculus. That's how smart he was. The main point being, so here's what he said. After figuring out the exact weight of the Earth, and that the exact weight of the Earth keeps us at perfect distance from the sun, because if we were 2% heavier, our orbit would be this far, and we'd be a block of ice. If we were 2% lighter, we would be this close to the sun, and we would be a burning coal. We would just be charcoal. Somehow he calculated that the weight of the Earth is exactly, perfectly places us in the right distance from the sun. So he thought, that's amazing. Who figured that out? Newton. The wonderful arrangement and harmony of the cosmos would only originate in the plan of an almighty omniscient being. This is and remains my greatest comprehension. More important than discovering gravity is important that he discovered the mind of God is behind all these things. Okay? Gravity. So anyway, we understand that. So everything we understand in the solar system so far, you live on a planet because there's a law called gravity, which is a type of give and take action. How about all the rest of the world we live in is all based on give and take action? For example, how about atoms? An atom comes to exist through give and take action between a proton and electron. This is called the action of fusion. Wikipedia, nuclear fusion is a reaction in which two or more atomic nuclei combine to form one or more different atomic nuclei. So this is what happens. A molecule comes into being through give and take action between a positive ion and a negative ion, which causes a chemical reaction. So everything you have, all the food you eat, is based on what? This give and take action between electrons and protons. Right? If you eat an apple, it has sugars in it. There's molecules called sugar that you eat. You eat proteins. Proteins make your body grow. All the other elements are based on this activity of give and take action between electrons and protons. Make sense? Give and take action again. So we say it looks like this. God creates all things through give and take action, which creates the chairs you're sitting on, the planet we're floating on, the air we breathe, the water we drink. All these things are based on this thing called give and take action. Right? And this is called, by the way, this type of give and take action is called fusion. And the reason I mention because there's different types of give and take action. One type of give and take action is gravity. One's called fusion. The most important activity of give and take action is what? Love. Absolutely. You're right. Annie was right that time. Somebody mark that down.
First time.
I don't think it's the first time, but it's still remarkable. See? So this is all your world is based on these two things having give and take action. Okay, and then when we come to life, we understand that give and take action is still the most important action or action that allows things to exist and multiply. For example, you look at a cell. All of us are made of cells, right? All life is made of cells. All life exists and multiplies based upon the symbiosis of a cell life. For example, cells and mitochondria. Cells and mitochondria are perhaps the most important symbiotic relationship on Earth. Without their cooperation, life would have no means of propagation. Mitochondria act as a power source for living cells, digesting nutrients and creating energy for the cell in a process called cellular respiration. Without mitochondria, cells would be incapable of producing energy. Finally, without the cell, mitochondria would not have a suitable environment for the process involved to create that energy. Of course, these two biological counterparts would be of no use without each other. So your body, all your body is made up of cells, made of mitochondria and cell bodies, right? So again, give and take action is what allows you to be alive, and all life on Earth is a give and take action between mitochondria, cells, or DNA, and plasma cells. Amongst all the creatures on Earth, and by the way, this science of symbiosis is new science. Darwin saw the world as a world painted by fang and claw. All Darwin is able to see in the world was murder and killing and suffering and torture and eating and biting. That's all he could see. This is what modern scientists see. All life exists and multiplies based on the symbiosis of cell life. Life competes for all kinds of natural resources, whether they be food, light, water, or shelter, but competition is only a small part of life on Earth, and really, cooperation and mutual benefit are also foundation for countless interactions in nature, right? So now we realize most of life on Earth is based on cooperation. For example, birds and berries. Berries evolve in a similar way, with the plant adapting to cope with animals feeding on its seeds. The bird or mammal gains a meal, right? Animals bite seeds, and then birds bite the seeds, and then they fly around, and then they do, a scientific term is a poop, right? And then what happens is that seed is planted in a different part where it can grow and then multiply, right? So the give and take action, the bird or the animal gets to eat fruit, but then it plants a seed for the plant. So both grow, both multiply. So when the bird or mammal gains a meal, while the plant seed is not only unharmed, but dispersed. The seeds of some plants, such as rowan, are often activated by passing through the rigors of the digestive system. The berries of many plants, including rowan, holly, and bird cherry, all take part in symbiotic relationships with birds. Some mammals, such as the pine marten, also feed on and disperse berries. So all this is what the world really looks like. The world isn't just biting and clawing and killing and eating and that. The world we live in of life is a world of incredible harmony and beauty of nature, and animals living and working together to save each other. Same with plants, right? Plants have stamen and pistil, masculinity and femininity, and this is called the relationship. Planets is called gravity. Of electrons and protons is called fusion, and with plants it's called sexuality. Plant sexuality. Nobody's offended by that, right? We can talk about sexuality amongst plants without being embarrassed. Anyhow, we all know about bees. Bees bring the sperm from the male plant to the female plant and help in reproduction, and then the bees get honey. All this is harmonious. The bees like the plants like the bees, animals like the honey, and the flowers become fruits, seeds, nuts, and berries for all the other animals to eat. So this is how God built a world of animals mutually participating and loving one another. Is that getting obvious? How about this? This is a wolf and ravens. There's a close relationship between ravens and wolves. Did you know that? They're actually friends and work together. Wolves not only make carcasses available, but also open up tough hides that birds would not be able to penetrate by themselves. Wolves often howl before going to hunt, and the ravens have learned to respond to this cue. Is that interesting? Wolves and ravens talk to each other. Wolves have also learned to listen to raven calls indicating that there are deer about. So the ravens tell the wolves, there's a deer over here. Come to lunch. Mutually beneficial partnerships occur on many different levels, and their influence is huge. Some of the most fundamental processes, from photosynthesis to the survival of herbivores, happen thanks to alliances, thanks to cooperation in the world today. That's the world God is making, cooperation in the world today. Some people will then say, well, what about predation? Lions eat zebras. Isn't that bad? Actually, no, it's not bad. Lions and zebras live for the sake of each other. Really? Yeah, really. And that is because if there were no lions, zebras would multiply out of control, eat all of vegetation, and then starve. We know that happens because in some places we've killed all the wolves, killed all the predators, then everything degrades because they can't keep the proper amount of herbivores in the food chain. Right? So yes, everything God made is living for the sake of the other. Even lions are living for the sake of zebras. Zebras live for the sake of lions. And together, they make a habitable place of all the other plants, animals, and vegetation that they live in. Ecologists wonder at the harmony and perfection of nature. Lions eat just enough zebras to balance out the vegetation. They don't eat too many zebras. They don't eat too few zebras. Somehow, lions know how to eat exactly the right amount of zebras to continue the population of zebra life. Amazing, isn't it? See, this is the real world of God's creation. All that baloney you're hearing from other people, claw, red with fang and claw. And of course, it's the same with bugs, birds, and all the other creatures in the sea, sharks, everything lives in harmony with each other. Even though there is biting and eating, it's all has a perfect balance to it that preserves life. So we say nature is in fact natural, and natural things are good for you. Right? When you go to the doctor and they say you have high blood pressure, they never say you should eat more pizza. Right? They never say you should eat more processed foods. They always say you should eat more natural foods like plants and vegetables and things like that. Don't they? Yes. See? Nature is natural. It's good for you. So this is what this animals maintain their existence to multiply through give and take action between male and female. The sexual relationship between animals is called mating. Between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, coexistence is made possible through give and take action. Plants give oxygen to animals, and animals return carbon dioxide to plants. The give and take action between plants and animals is called ecology. This is a new word, right? This is a new word that scientists are only discovering in the last 70 years, that there's actually a balance of nature. Flowers offer nectar to bees, bees pollinate flowers. The relationship between bees and flowers and all things is called symbiosis. Symbiosis means they're the same life. They're one flesh. You've heard that term before, right? One flesh. Bees and flowers, fruits, deers, animals are all one living being. And this is and that brings us to the carbon cycle. Between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, coexistence is made possible through give and take action. Plants give oxygen to animals, animals return carbon dioxide to the plants, right? So this is science. Science says it's all one universe. Just like Newton could understand gravity is universal to all the galaxies, all the planets, everything, then biological sciences are discovering that this is the same with us. It's a universal life. It's one universal life on Earth. So we say all of nature, all of our universe is symbiotic. Ecology means all things live and contribute to the whole purpose. And we say, who designed this harmony? Who could do that? Where do these principles and laws come from? God created them. So God is a God of order, law, and principle. And in all creation, we see order, law, and principle. There's order in all movements from the heavenly bodies down to the cells of our bodies, down to atoms and particles. So now we can see our idea is that based on divine principle that Reverend Moon explained to us in the 20th century, we can now see a real picture of what God is like. We can see it. Nobody understood this before, right? And it's not, by the way, it's not me, it's Divine Principle book. So this is Albert Einstein. When something vibrates, the electrons of the entire universe resonate with it. Everything is connected. The greatest tragedy of human existence is the illusion of separateness. Right? Second smartest physicist, Newton being the first. A human being is part of the whole called by us universe. A part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest. We call this the fall of man. We call it the fall of man. We don't know we're part of a giant ecosystem. People don't know that. We don't know that God created this beautiful system of gravity and universal laws and all these things. We don't know it. We just go to work, eat hot dogs, do whatever we do. We just wander around not knowing our purpose in life and where we fit in creation. Einstein said this delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Right? What do true parents always teaches us? What does Jesus say? Go forth and teach all the nations. True parents teach interracial marriage and harmony. That's the way to go. That's what Einstein could see. Right? Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Isn't that what the Unification Church, that's why it's the Unification Church, right? So what does a unified universe have to do with love of your neighbor, loving your neighbor as yourself? Right? That was the first point. What's this because that's what the world is. Because everything God makes lives for the sake of others. Even though cows don't know they're living for the sake of others, they are. Cows eat, fertilize the grass after they get done eating, breathe out carbon dioxide for the plants to breathe in. They don't know they may not know they're living for others. But all animals, all insects, all bugs, all spiders, all birds, they all live for the sake of the other. This has only been discovered recently based on the merit of the age of true parents not being killed on earth, if you ask me. Bees live for flowers. Flowers live for bees. Flowers make fruits. Fruits are for all the other animals. Plants breathe out oxygen and breathe in carbon dioxide. Animals breathe out carbon dioxide and in oxygen. So what's going on here? We call it the whole system. This whole ecosystem is symbiotic relationships between plants and animals and bees and flowers and fruits and animals. That's what's going on here on Earth as a giant symbiotic living ecology. So the universe offers us a symbiotic image of God. A symbolic image of God, harmonious being of intellect who creates our world is symbiosis. Thank you. So that's why the second greatest commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. Because all the animals, all the things in nature are loving each other as themselves. They're all one flesh. They're all part of one symbiotic universe. So when we love our neighbor as ourselves, we're fulfilling God's will. We're only being the same as all the other creatures in creation. Love your neighbor as yourself means that we should live in a symbiotic relationship with each other centered on God's ideal of true love. Obvious, isn't it? Yeah. That's what true parents came to show us. That's why it's a revelation. That's why we're transformed by the Word. Except humans. Lions do not enslave, torture, incarcerate, or annihilate the zebra population. They live harmoniously together. Yes, they eat some zebras, but the larger herd is safe and growing and doing well. Human beings have an evil nature, whereby we have greed and take more than we need all the time. Russia and Ukraine and so on and so forth. It's always a terrible mess with human beings. Humans do that to each other to an evil extent. Yes, some lions eat zebras. Some wolves eat deer. But they don't eat all the deer. They don't put all the deer in jails and then torture them to death. Only humans have that evil nature in them. That's what we want to change. And how do we change? Romans 12:2. And do not be conformed to this world. We believe differently, right? We believe in the Middle East Peace Initiative. We want to love everybody. Why? Because we're transformed by the world. By the renewing of our mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. That's who we're trying to become in our lives of faith. Most people go through this world without knowledge of why they're here, what their lives are for, and on the other hand, we ourselves do live and die for one another, right? Isn't that right? Surely we work and sacrifice for one another. This is not predation or slavery, but we do sacrifice our lives for one another. Don't husbands go out and work hard to feed their family? Don't wives work hard to feed their children? Dads work hard for wives, wives for husbands, parents for children, families for society, and societies for nations. So this is how we have give and take with the rest of the world. Our point being that true parents taught us about a giant give and take action with the whole world, not just with one person or one next door neighbor or something like that. And we say that giving, working, sacrificing has eternal value, which we call treasure in heaven. People don't know that. So they just think, let's watch television. We don't know how to create treasure in heaven. We do, and the idea is loving others, loving our neighbor as ourselves, whether it's people in foreign countries or whatever we do, that's what we try to do. Isn't that so? Yes. Ephesians, for example, us husbands in the Unification Church. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. He might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having a spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. That's what being one flesh means. This is a symbiotic relationship between husbands and wife. Husband lives for the wife, wife lives for the husband, parents live for the families. It's still symbiotic. It's the same thing as all universe God's creating. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh and his bones. For this reason, man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. That's our ideal, isn't it? So we say loving your neighbor as yourself begins in the family. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. See? Like that. So we say the force of give and take action, which allows human to exist and multiply, is called love. It's not gravity. It's not just sexual attraction. There's a force that's greater than those. That's the peak of give and take action that God understands and appreciates is love between man and woman. That's the peak of give and take action. All the other give and take actions are to create this peak of give and take action we call love between man and woman, love between husband and wife, the true image of God. So this is divine principle, okay? Again, through the force of give and take action, the essentialities produce a reciprocal base, which in turn produces a foundation of existence in an individual self. That upon this foundation, the individual self can stand as God's object and receive all the power necessary for its own existence. So this is what we believe through the divine principle. Watch. So here's God, right? He creates humans and he creates others. He creates animals, plants, other human beings, others. And when we learn to have give and take action based on love, the love of others, living for the sake of others, then what do? We become the direct object to God. That's our whole goal in life, to become a direct object to God and become a true child of God. One body, one flesh with God. How do we do that? Give and take action. That's what the meaning of loving your neighbor of yourself really means. Jesus said, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. So now I am giving you a new commandment, love each other. True parents' revelation, live for the sake of others. Isn't that our motto? Don't you have that sticker all over your house? Live for the sake of others. We have lived on a world level, right? Us, unificationists, haven't we lived on a worldwide level of love? Where is it? We have lived on a world level, overcoming worldwide communism through CAUSA, right? Didn't you guys work on CAUSA? Ciapa was one of the agents working with CAUSA in Honduras and in El Salvador. Didn't we do that? Didn't we fight communism? Didn't we support the Washington Times newspaper? That's a worldwide effort to love mankind. And what happened to the Washington Times? Poland, Hungary, Romania, country after country was freed from communist aggression, right? It's amazing. So our little lives were transformed by the word. Many of us were wandering around, long-haired hippies, rock and roll playing, lice-infected rock and rollers. But when we heard the divine principle, we were transformed by the word, and become people who worked on a worldwide level. We worked in the Middle East Peace Initiative, being peace in the Middle East. Didn't you go there? Yes. Didn't you go there and pray and work and contact people and bring ministers and Christians and Jews and Muslims? Didn't you do that? Absolutely, we did that on a worldwide level, working for God's peace. Don't we support schools in Africa, where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of African kids, who many of them were orphaned due to every kind of problem known to mankind, are being taught and raised up in vocational schools, some orphanages, some medical centers? Don't we do that? Don't we work every day for the peaceful unity of Korea so that 19 million North Koreans can live in peace and harmony, have food and water and freedom? Don't we do that every single day? Right? Don't we work with interreligious peace, with UPF, with Point, with all these different groups to be able to create God's kingdom on earth? Don't we do that all the time? Because we were transformed by the Word of God. That's what happened to us. Amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.